Hi everybody, it's Gad Saad, about to get on the elliptical, but I thought that I should leave you this message first. I was compelled to do so. A few days ago, the director of the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins, released the following statement. Let me just read it to you. Verbatim, time to end the Manel tradition. Manel refers to all male panels at conferences. The National Institutes of Health is committed to changing the culture and climate of biomedical research to create an inclusive and diverse workforce. This is the DIE religion: diversity, inclusion, and equity. The recent report by the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, titled, quote, Sexual Harassment of Women, Climate, Culture, and Consequence in Academic Science, Engineering, and Medicine, identified the critical role that scientific leaders must play to combat cultural forces that tolerate gender harassment and limit the advancement of women. These concerns also are highly relevant to other groups underrepresented in science. It is not enough to give lip service to equality. Leaders must demonstrate their commitment through their actions. Toward that end, I want to send a clear message of concern. It is time to end the tradition in science of all male speaking panels, sometimes wryly referred to as manels. Too often, women and members of other groups underrepresented in science are conspicuously missing in the marquee speaking slots at scientific meetings and other high-level conferences. Starting now, when I consider speaking invitations, I will expect a level playing field where scientists of all backgrounds are evaluated fairly for speaking opportunities. If that attention to inclusiveness is not evident in the agenda, I will decline to take part. I challenge other scientific leaders across the biomedical enterprise to do the same. The diversity of bright and talented minds engaged in biomedical research has come a long way, and our public engagements need to catch up, breaking up the subtle and sometimes not so subtle bias that is preventing women and other groups underrepresented in science from achieving their rightful place in science leadership must begin at the top. Francis S. Collins, MD, PhD, Director, National Institutes of Health. Subsequent to that, Simon Baron-Cohen, who is a very well-known cognitive neuroscientist. I highly respect some of his work. He's done some very interesting work on autism. Very good speaker, very serious scientist. Put out the following tweet regarding the Francis Collins announcement. Scientists and other academics should follow this excellent example and refuse to speak on all-male panels in conferences/scholarly meetings. This includes as keynote speakers or in round-table discussions. A change in gender diversity has to happen quickly. So Simon is agreeing with Francis Collins, to which I replied to Simon, Dear Simon Baron-Cohen, I was going to invite you for a chat on my show at some point, as I appreciate your scientific work, but your position here is grotesquely wrong. Bad look, buddy. Also, I face the conundrum that if I were to invite him on my show, this would imply that there are two males on the show. So it would be me, male. I have testicles and a penis. He's a male. He's got testicles and penis. So the only way that we could hold the chat while maintaining gender equity would be if either him or myself self-identify as a trans woman. And so I'm happy to invite him, and certainly for that day, I'm happy to self-identify as woman, therefore we can achieve the gender parity. I then wrote to him again, where is it here? I might have to intervene and set you straight. Identity politics are a cancer to human dignity. Women greatly outnumber men across degrees and races. Don't patronize women. You're better than this, buddy. Now, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a reply that I sent to a colleague at my own university who had written to me. I think I covered this in an earlier SAAD TRUTH clip, and it is certainly covered in my forthcoming book. So this colleague had written to me, sent me an email regarding a symposium that I organized this past October at my university, a symposium on evolutionary consumption, where it turned out there was an imbalance in terms of the number of male speakers that were there that I had invited and the number of female speakers. And so she had written to me an email where she said, I realized that this is happening, and I'm sure it was an oversight on your part, and that moving forward you will fix this problem. This is a junior faculty member to me, who's wagging her finger and saying, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Here's what I replied to her. Many thanks for your email. I'm sorry that you won't be able to make it. As to your point, I do not subscribe to identity politics, and certainly not in science. If the symposium at hand necessitated that most speakers be women, so be it. If in this case the number of male to female speakers is not, quote, balanced, so be it. I did invite another female speaker, but she was unavailable. I did not choose my speakers as a function of whether they ovulate or not. I chose them based on their fit with the topic at hand, their availability, etc. The U.S. government released data across 5 races and 4 educational attainment levels: associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's, and doctorate. As such, there were 20 cells to analyze. In every single cell, women outnumbered men. Are you going to push for greater gender parity across the cells? Because it is difficult to imagine a more, quote, biased reality. I should add that we do not know whether any of the male speakers self-identify as women, so perhaps the gender parity is more balanced than might first appear. In any case, thank you for writing in. I hope that we'll have a chance to interact again. That's the gist of my email. Of course, I didn't include the salutation here, etc., because I don't want to identify the person in question, although perhaps she should be identified. Of course, I didn't receive a reply from her, but incidentally, I went to her webpage, university webpage, and saw a photo of her lab. She's shown in the center of the photo with 9 of her students. Do you want to guess how many of her students were male versus female? Give a guess. Think about it. This is the person who wrote to me and said, I'm watching you. You better redress this situation. Don't make this mistake again. You got it. All female. So the person who writes to me and says, hey, I noticed that this symposium that you're putting together, which by the way takes a tremendous amount of effort. You would think a colleague would simply be saying, wow, I'm so excited to come and listen to hopefully great scientific ideas about evolutionary theory and so on, was concerned about the ovulatory status of the people that I had invited. But that person doesn't see the astonishing hypocrisy of posting a lab photo where it is only women in her lab. Because, patriarchy. Malala took a bullet to the head from the Taliban because she tried to redress the horrible sexism that takes place in that region of the world where women are denied the opportunity to study, to be educated. And she's a heroine for doing so. 100 years ago in the West, there were institutional barriers for women entering university. This is no longer the case. So to hang on to a narrative that is literally a murder of truth is grotesque. That Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, and Simon Baron-Cohen, a leading cognitive neuroscientist, in their castrated attempts to appear virtuous, say, yeah, me too, I will never show up at a conference if it has only male panels, is demeaning to women. Women don't need your virtuous help. They can do it on their own. This die religion has to stop. And the quicker that people rise up against it and treat every single individual based on their individual merits and faults, the better of a society we'll have. I warned you many years ago that this was coming. I gave you prophetic satire to tell you what was coming. It's all coming true. Fight, rise up against this baloney, and don't let people judge you based on immutable characteristics. Get involved. Cheers.